Warhammer 40k has 19 Primarchs, but there are actually 18, but there are actually 9, according to the Imperium. One of the most controversial ones within the fanbase is Leman Russ. At least I've noticed that he gets a whole lot of shit, much of which is undeserved. And since he's my favorite Primarch, I wanted to make a video kinda defending him, and the new Space Wolves models got teased, and they really got me in the mood to talk about Warhammer and talk about the Space Wolves. People are often really attacking Leman Russ, saying that he is a hypocrite, a bit of a dumbass, lacks tactics, and is overall kinda useless. And I want to sit here and defend him for a little bit, because I think a lot of the slander is undeserved. He's flawed, yeah, of course, but it actually makes him more interesting than it does making him annoying. Because some trivia that he already kind of wins brownie points with is that he is the only Primarch to have actually won a contest from the Emperor. Granted, the contests were drinking and eating, but still, he was 2-0 when they first met. It was only when Russ decided, like, okay, double or nothing, let's brawl, and then he got one-tapped by the Emperor. But aside from that, he had a pretty solid record when he started. But once he lost and the Emperor revealed himself as his father and stuff, Leman kinda got to work pretty quickly, being the second, but really being the third Primarch found. His legion, which before him used to be just a couple of brain-dead savages that were kinda like the World Eaters, but without the Push's nails, and actually managed to make them a proper army, that throughout the Horus heresy and the current 40k setting, keep turning into a more and more noble faction, even though their appearances don't look like it. The things that really make Leman Russ interesting, you see that he really portrays two different characters. When he is in front of the Space Wolves, he is a lot more of the macho, burly character that you expect him to be when you see him. But as soon as he gets into private meetings with like Malkador or other Primarchs or generals, whatever, his posture straightens. He loses his snarl and he becomes a lot more human in a way, but also shows like his true colors, being an actual ruler, showing more nobility, calm, and intellect. It's also why he hangs out with Malkador a lot, who he sees more as a father figure than he does with the Emperor. It's also why he has so many friendship with the other Primarchs. He actually has such a close bond with Corvus Corax of the Raven Guard, to the point where Corvus has took the time to learn Fenrisian and is able to speak that with Russ and the Wolves. He's also forged plenty of friendship with Sanguinius, because everyone is friends with Sanguinius. Horus, because at the time, everybody was also friends with Horus. Believe it or not, him and the Lion actually kinda became bros as time went on, to the point where Russ's favorite drink isn't mead, the highly alcoholic substance that they made on Fenris, but wine from the home planet of the Lion. He genuinely mentions how he appreciates like the refined taste of the wine, you know, showing that he is so much more posh than he leads on. But in terms of him being smart, he is also very aware of how the Emperor sees the Primarchs. He knows that his purpose is being a warrior that conquers the stars. But as soon as that ends, he would have no purpose, and that kind of freaks him out. But if you look at Warhammer currently, that's not really something to be afraid of. But Russ has some very interesting conversations together with Malkador as well, really debating the war tactics that sometimes seem too brash according to Malkador, that have panned out in ways that I will elaborate on later in the video. But where a lot of his bad reputation comes from is that he is supposed to be the Emperor's executioner, yet when he is 1v1ing other Primarchs, he seemingly keeps losing fights, but a lot of those fights have an actually behind it, which are more character-defining reasoning than it is ass-pulls from the writers, so I imagine it being more than fair to mention those reasonings. The 1v1 between Leman Russ and Angron, which honestly is less of a 1v1 than people often portray it to be. Angron showed much more velocity during the fight and was able to beat Leman Russ down to the point where he had to crawl back into his ship. However, you must also realize that the Space Wolves and the World Eaters were fighting each other at the same time as the fight between the Primarchs. Believe it or not, the Space Wolves actually used strategy during this fight, making huge defensive lines for the World Eaters not to really be able to break through, although they were able to kill a bunch of wolves in the process. However, the goal for the wolves was to make that defense and surround Angron and Leman Russ, who were fighting each other. That way they enabled the possibility to execute Angron right on the spot. They were ready to do that. Russ was trying to show Angron that they were capable of it. Only Angron was so damn dense that he did not realize that. Ignored everything else around him and just wanted to beat the crap out of Leman Russ, with possibly even the intent to kill him. Leman himself, however, did not want to kill Angron. He in fact wanted to help him and admittedly scold him a little bit for his invalid tactics, making sure that he got Angron back to Terra and asked their father for help with removing the Butcher's nails. Even later on, Angron and Lorgar had a debate about this fight, where Lorgar keeps calling Angron an idiot for not realizing the lesson that Leman was trying to teach him, stating that his skull must be incredibly fucking dense to still not understand what was going on. This fight showed that Leman definitely has a lot of empathy for his other Primarchs, even though memes and the community doesn't often say that that is the case. He wanted to help Angron lose his ferocity, get rid of the Butcher's nails, and overall just be a good brother. Only Angron decided to bite the helping hand. And now to the 1v1 against the Lion. This might be one of, if not the most controversial fights with the fight roster that Russ has had. So basically, the Dark Angels and the Space Wolves were sieging the same planet and cooperated with each other for the first time while the Primarchs were both active. During their battle strategies, Leman Russ has called dibs on being the one to kill the leader of the enemy faction, to which the Lion has agreed to. And during the siege, the plan went completely according to plan. However, Leman Russ had to give a speech to his sons for a moment, that he was very much aware of the Wolfen curse that his sons were trying to hide in the middle of that battle, which caused him to delay a little bit. The Lion decided to take it upon himself to just execute the leader himself anyway, because why doesn't matter? But the Space Wolves are prideful, so Leman confronted him about it, saying, "What the fuck, bro, I had dibs." But the Lion said, "Well, I waited 15 minutes and you didn't show up, so legally I was allowed to kill him." Then Leman asked the Lion if he was dropped as a child, and they started fighting. Now, at first it was a duel with swords, which the Lion was eventually able to disarm Leman Russ. And it is stated in the novel that if it was just that, an honorable sword duel, the Lion would have won. However, Leman just punched him in the face and kept on fighting, because he didn't hear no bell, and they have actually been beating the crap out of each other for multiple days. There was a moment in that fight where Leman Russ saw an opportunity, an opening, where if he took it, he would have been able to kill the Lion. However, that was an opportunity he decided not to take. And the fight eventually ended with laughter, because Leman realized that it is so fucking stupid that him and his brother have just been beating each other to a pulp for actually a pretty stupid reason. Now, the Lion is a little special, so he still put his fists up and asked Leman if he wanted to surrender. Leman thought that was fucking hilarious, so he rocked his head back and started laughing again, to which the Lion's reply was to sucker punch him and knock him out. A lot of people say that this is the reason that just the Lion won that fight, but at the end of the same novel, where the Horus heresy has happened and the Emperor has died, the Lion went to visit Leman and invited him to finish the fight that, according to him, never truly ended. But Leman Russ was really on a mindfulness streak, and he was like, "No, we have no reason to fight, I'm out, don't want to do it." To which the Lion answered by promptly stabbing him in the chest. So in terms of this being a 1v1 with an actual conclusion, it's more of a draw. Unless you call petty sucker punches and stabbing an unarmored and unarmed person an honest victory, then I don't know what to tell you. This conflict between these two brothers is also a really nice display of who they are trying to portray as and who they really are. Leman Russ is really a nobleman, but he's pretending to be a beast, whereas the Lion is really a beast, but pretending to be a nobleman. They are two sides of the same coin, and if you really like one of the two, chances are you'll probably like the other as well, because these two have a whole lot in common. Now, this is a fight where there are hundreds and thousands of debates about. Leman Russ versus Magnus the Red. During the beginning of the Horus heresy, where Horus still operated as the War Master but has in secret turned traitor, gave direct orders to Leman Russ to clear Prospero, because according to Horus, Magnus has turned traitor. At this point in time, Leman had no reason to question Horus, who was appointed the War Master. Every order from Horus should have been seen as it came directly for the Emperor. So to hear that his brother turned traitor caused Leman to be absolutely fucking furious. Gathered a big whole ass army, gathered some Sisters of Silence to have that nice counterspell against Psykers, and started sieging the planet. Leman Russ first tried to contact Magnus, asking him to surrender. But if Fulgrim is a slut, then Magnus is a drama queen. He cut off all Vox support, he cut off all security protocols, because he saw it as a penance for the wolves to punish him, which means that he missed the only opportunity to actually peacefully surrender to the wolves. And also on top of that, Leman just kinda doesn't like Psykers, at least the ones that use them very unstably. A lot of Thousand Sons are unstable Psykers. That's also why they're all dust now, so he has a point there somewhere. So he sieged the palace and decided to 1v1 Magnus. So Magnus, being the second or third most powerful Psyker in the Imperium, would think that he has a chance against Leman Russ. But Leman Russ has the power of yelling really loud, which dampens psychic ability somewhat. Bro cast Counterspell by screaming, and then baned the fuck out of Magnus. So instead of using magic, Magnus just simply stabbed Leman Russ in the heart. Leman Russ responded by doing a bane and breaking Magnus's back, and was actually about to execute him. Only Tzeentch, at that moment, made a deal with Magnus to help him the fuck out and teleport out of there and turn into a demon Primarch for Tzeentch. So here, again, according to his knowledge, Magnus has turned traitor. He offered Magnus to surrender, but he didn't take that opportunity, and when they faced in combat, Magnus didn't really defend himself in any way verbally. Magnus never gave a reason for Leman to doubt whether he actually turned traitor or not. But there is also this wonderful chapter in a Space Wolves novel where Magnus the Red talks to the statue of Leman Russ back at the homeworld of Fenris and speaks to it, mentioning that he realized that he saw that Russ did not want to do what he did on Prospero. It was a way for Magnus to kind of honor his brother and also admit to his own mistakes during the heresy. But with how far down Chaos he already is, it is very difficult for him to ever be able to come back. Especially since his whole personality is shattered. Now the latest and greatest 1v1 between Leman Russ and some other fucking guy. Horus Lupercal, who at that point in time has turned full traitor, is taking every single drug at the same time, and it is argued that he was on par or close to the strength of the Emperor himself. And Leman Russ at that point thought with his gigantic giga brain, I'm a 1v1 that bitch. Now a lot of people say that that is very, very fucking stupid of him to do, which if you look at it that way, is pretty correct. However, you must also realize what the purpose is of his legion and what he himself is as a character. He is the Emperor's executioner. He goes for the head of the snake, and instead of teaming up together with Rogel Dorn, who wanted to do entire defense fortifications, he wanted to do what his own legion excels at. So he fucking yeeted his own fleet into Horus's fleet, boarded his flagship, and thought, I have a legendary drop, you are on all drugs imaginable, let's fucking do this. And here is the thing, during that fight, once again, same as with the lion, there was a perfect opportunity that Russ could have taken to kill Horus. However, here is where it gets a little bit spiritual magic fucky wucky. The Emperor's spear shows and reveals to the wielder a lot of truths. And when he stabbed Horus, he still saw the pure loyalist son that was basically completely possessed. That moment caused him to hesitate, because truthfully, he does not want to kill his brothers. So instead of taking the victory that he did deserve, Horus went psych and then wounded Russ to the point where he was not able to do anything else for the remainder of the heresy. Now here's just like a fucky wucky Games Workshop writings issue. The wound that he caused on Horus was supposed to matter a lot in the final fight, but was barely mentioned, if at all, in the last book, so it was just kind of like a lore bit that got skipped over. The idea of wounding Horus was supposed to matter, but it really didn't, so that's just kind of a weird fault from Games Workshop side. So all in all, Leman is just kind of a bro, but in the best way possible. He shows genuine empathy and care for his brothers, and his moments of hesitation show that he is not a fan of killing them, which does imply that he might have killed one of the two missing Primarchs. And throughout his progression with the heresy, He has made mistakes and fuck-ups, like when he was fighting the Lion, like when he was fighting Angron. Realized his mistakes and started growing. So when he returns, me and many other Space Wolf fans expect him to return as an incredibly wizened warrior, ready to get the Imperium out of the incredibly huge shitshow they're currently in. But each fight, each loss and decision he has reflected upon, and at the end of his Primarch book, he's on the precipice of becoming an incredibly wise man with a very flawed past. It makes him human. It makes him grow as a character. And it makes him my favorite Primarch.